Welcome to No Facts Needed. Today we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Chargers. So we have the Chargers ranked 19 out of all NFL teams. My record prediction, we actually are total opposite. I have them going 5-11, missing the playoffs. What about you?
I have them at a smooth 10-6.
10-6.
Actually,
making the playoffs.
Bounce back year, yeah.
Okay, so Vegas has them at a solid 7.5. Right in the middle between our two predictions. And last year they went 5-11. Let's talk about their schedule. Okay, Their own division is tough. I mean, depending on if you believe in the Broncos and the Raiders, but obviously the Chiefs are there. They play the NFC South, which is probably the toughest division in the NFL right now, with the Saints, Bucks, Panthers, and Falcons. And then they play the AFC East, which should be pretty easy. I mean, they're going to play the Jets, the Pats, and then they have the Bills and Dolphins, who should be competitive with them. Some extra teams they play are the Jags and Bengals, which should be easy games for them.
I mean, it's a pretty favorable schedule.
It is, I agree.
When I made my power rankings, I didn't have them as high as I did when I came out with the Chargers at like 10-6 as the 6th seed. I was really kind of surprised because, I didn't think I was that big of a fan of them. I gotta say, one thing that's holding them down is most teams have a home field advantage. And I know this year, there might not be any fans in the seats.
Yeah.
But that's actually a good thing for the Chargers.
because they're used to it.
Because they don't have fans anyway.
I know. Well, let's talk about their offseason, starting with the draft. Obviously, they got Justin Herbert at number 6, and then they also got Kenneth Murray and Josh Kelly. Through the free agency, the some acquisitions they got were Linval Joseph, Brian Bulaga, Chris Harris, and then they made a trade for Trey Turner. They traded away Russell Okung, and then some losses were, of course, Russell Okung for Trey Turner. Old Phil Rivers, Melvin Gordon, Adrian Phillips, the safety and linebacker combo, Derek Watt, Jalen Watkins, Travis Benjamin, Thomas Davis, Brandon Maybane.
I like some of these moves. I like Kenneth Murray. Okay, I like Brian Bulaga. I think that's a good signing. Chris Harris, obviously. Anytime you get O-line help, Trey Turner and Bulaga, like I said, that's good. And then Linval is good.
Phillip Rivers and Melvin Gordon are probably their biggest losses, but it might actually help the team because Phil was definitely older and kind of just closing his eyes and throwing it up to Keenan Allen, losing a lot of games for them. And then Melvin Gordon has just been a big distraction the past 2 years, with the whole contract. So getting them off the team might kind of help them focus and concentrate. And then everybody else they lost were just some role players. And I agree with you. Everybody they got were going to be quality starters. We can talk about positions, starting with Tyrod Taylor. I think he's a good bridge QB. I think that's what he is right now. He's a mobile guy that can protect the ball and has never thrown more than 6 interceptions in a season. Not super accurate, can make the throws, and he's a playoff QB. Can't take that away from him. He made the playoffs with the Bills. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And then we can talk about Justin Herbert, the eventual predecessor to Tyrod, was the 6th pick in the draft. We talked about that. It is kind of controversial with most people. Most people think he's going to be a bust, but I'm not going to talk about him. I don't think he's going to play a lot this year, I don't think he's going to affect this team too much,
Yeah, and I think that's the right thing to do. I think if they try to throw Justin Herbert in, and I think it would be a disaster more or less.
No matter when Justin Herbert really starts, I think he's going to be a good quarterback. I said that kind of before the draft, and that's all I'm going to say. We can move on to running backs. Let's start with Austin Eckler. Super good utility back. Little suspect and a little worried about him being the number 1 guy with Melvin Gordon out. When Melvin Gordon was out, he still played good, but I'm not super sold on him yet. He can definitely catch and make people miss. Last year, his stats wise, he's never ran for more than 600 yards in a season, but almost got 1,000 receiving yards last year. So it kind of just seems like a really good receiving back instead of an actual running back.
Yeah, I'm curious if he's gonna be, how much he's actually gonna tote the rock. Sure, it's gonna be a running back by committee, to some extent, more or less. But I think they have a lot of pieces, so I think this is a plus for them.
Overall, I graded them as a B. Next group, probably their best offensive group, the wide receivers. Keenan Allen, amazing route runner, great catching ability, and has had to deal with Phil as his QB for his career. I mean, like we said before, Phil literally just closed his eyes and throw it to Keenan, and Keenan sometimes would actually come down with the ball, surprisingly. Pretty much has had 1,200 yards in the last 3 years, or each of the last 3 years. I think the last 2 years have been like 1,199 yards, so.
Mike Williams, I feel like he's, I don't know, he doesn't really fit with Tyrod. I think Keenan is going to be Tyrod's best friend just because he's not a huge risk taker. So Mike Williams might have a little bit of a down year, but I don't think that's because he's bad. I think he's a really, really good number 2 receiver. He's got the radius to make any catch he needs to. And, I mean, there's going to be games probably like he has in the past where he goes off and just is skying over everybody. And then once he gets the ball in the hands, he's a physical specimen. So he's just, like, throwing people off of him, and he's actually, like, fast. So I really like Mike Williams, even though his production might be a little down this year.
Yeah.
And then they're kind of have an open spot as their third receiver. I don't know if it's going to be Joe Reed or KJ Hill, just 2 rookies that I actually think have a solid chance of starting for them this year.
Yeah. I graded them as an A-. So we can talk about tight ends. You kind of already talked about him. Injuries have really derailed his career. And I will say, I think he's overrated. Just because when he's played, he's definitely been good, but he hasn't been like that top-tier tight end that people are like, oh my gosh, like Hunter Henry's amazing. Once he gets back, like it's going to be crazy for the Chargers. But, you know, I graded him as a B, just like I said. When he does play, which is rare, he's just good. I mean, that's good, you know, but it's just good.
I mean, for a tight end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We can move on to O-line. You want to talk about them?
Well, I think for once it looks like an improvement as an O-line. Yeah. They're still going to struggle for sure.
Yeah.
Pouncey, kind of like we just said with the receivers here, dude has a real problem staying on the field. Bulaga, he's a good pass protector. You probably don't want him as like your best tackle.
Yeah.
But when you're the Chargers, you'll take it. Whoever starts at the other tackle position is going to be probably their weak link, whether it's Tavai or Scott. And then, I mean, they just have some guys to kind of fill in at the guard spot.
I graded them as a B-. Talk about some defense, though. The real, amazing part about this
This
team.
is where the hope arises for this team.
D-line. Freaking, I mean, I'm going to spoil it. They're an A- for me. They got some dogs up front. They got Joey Bosa, who just got paid so much money. Last year he got 11.5 sacks and is always in the QB's face. I mean, most people know that his motor doesn't stop. Mm-hmm. He's an elite run stopper and pass rusher.
Yeah.
And then they also have Melvin Ingram on the other side. He got 7 sacks in each of the last 2 years. Kind of lower, but he definitely does more on the field than what his stats show. He's always in the QB's face, kind of like Joey Bosa. Mm-hmm. And he's also good in the run, too. Do you want to talk about their D tackles?
Well, they got Linval, like I said, coming over from Minnesota.
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to be able to pretty much just plug and play stuff the run. Something they've been looking for in the past because they have been atrocious at stopping the run.
Yeah.
In the past couple of years. They're going to be hoping that Jerry Tillery is going to actually show something because he was a first-round pick out of Notre Dame, and he has been a non-factor.
For me, I just put Justin Jones as a young guy that takes up space, and then I have Linval Joseph, who's an old guy that can take up space. Pretty much all they have there. We can talk about linebackers. Do you want to talk about them?
So I think their linebackers is probably their little bit of a weak spot for them on their defense, but this team is going to be running a lot of nickel defenses, a lot of dime defenses, a lot of defensive backs as opposed to linebackers on the field.
Yeah.
So I think most of the time you're going to be looking at Nwasu along with Kenneth Murray. Maybe Denzel Perryman still gets in the mix. And then they have Tranquil or Nick Vigil to come in just in case, in case one of those guys goes down. Kenneth Murray, dude's heat-seeking missile, as they say. His motor never stops. Kind of like
Joey
Bosa, but times 100. The dude is just always just going as fast as possible, sideline to sideline. Now he might miss sometimes
over pursuit,
but you can't hate the boy for trying.
Yeah.
And Nwasu also really interesting. I mean he does a lot of different things. I think they're kind of waiting on him to translate his athleticism into.
For the linebackers, I graded them as a B-. So we can talk about their secondary.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think this is the best secondary in the league, actually.
Yep. Okay.
So we can start with Casey Hayward, the old guy in the room.
Yeah.
You know, one of the best quarterbacks in the league for a while now. Always underrated. He's really good. They bring in Chris Harris. I don't know if he's going to be in the slot. I would assume that that's where he's going to be just because that's where he's most comfortable. But they also have Desmond King, who is a super good athlete and makes plays, but he's also best suited in the slot. So I don't know if they're going to kind of, have them both on the field, kind of close to the line of scrimmage maybe. And they also have like Michael Davis on the outside. And then, I wouldn't call him their best player. But I think Derwin is the best safety in the league. The guy, he could start at free, strong, or linebacker on any team. He's got literally everything you could ask for. He's got the range to play anywhere on the field and, make plays. He's big and strong enough to play in the box, as a linebacker, come off the edge, even like Jamal Adams in that way. And he just destroys game plans.
Yeah.
When he wasn't on the field a lot last year, but the dude is an absolute animal.
So I graded them as an A. Let's talk about what they can do this season and how far they can go into the season. I think they're a playoff team. They can make the playoffs. Even though my record prediction doesn't show that, they have the talent to do it.
I think that this team has a lot of talent. And I feel like they're being overlooked in that way.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about some pros for this upcoming season. So their defense should be able to make plays, score, and get some turnovers. They have young players on both sides of the ball and got rid of Phil. This is really starting a new chapter and should be great for them, Like you said, they have a ton of talent. But let's talk about some cons. Tyrod Taylor is a playoff QB, but that doesn't mean he's going to take them to the playoffs, And just because Herbert was a sixth pick doesn't mean he's going to be good. They have a lot of players, but they all get injured a lot. I can't point to one player and say he's going to stay healthy the whole entire season. Well, this has been No Facts Needed. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let us know down below what's your record prediction, how you think the Chargers are going to do.